always be true. Welcome, yet again, to the Always Be True podcast. It's very good to be here speaking with you again, and I'm speaking from my attic in Santa Cruz, California. Today, the date is January 24th. It's about 9 o'clock p.m. in my current experience of now. And I wanted to say thank you for your patience while episode 2 is being released. And a brief examination into my own work with rhythm. I had set an intention to do a podcast weekly, and I see that aligning. And it's interesting because I had made a few recordings as well, but didn't release anything because I just didn't feel like it was the right time or the right things to say in those podcasts. And now that I felt the inspiration to come up here and record again, I'm starting to notice some of the connections of how I'd like to share and produce some of those recordings. And as I speak, I want to remind you that I know nothing. I don't know anything. I'm sharing things that I am learning, hearing, noticing, experiencing. But I don't know anything. And within my experience of wanting to adhere within the ideas of consistency and constancy to my own commitment, I could feel the pressure of wanting to just put something out for the sake of putting something out to remain more constant. But it didn't feel right at the time. And I believe making sure that we are in balance, not putting things off, but not also being forceful with how we choose to put things into the world. So my commitment here is to the quality of truth, and that through these words, you feel an enrichment to the quality of your experience in life. And to not be a place where I am inflating myself or my own ego, but simply a place to serve and a place to feel good and feel well for me, to examine and practice speaking and practice humility in myself, but also to share and give through the gift of the voice. And what I want to speak about today, this evening, this now, is the truth that you are always in the right place at the right time. You are always right where you need to be, right where you are supposed to be. You are always right where you are. No mistake. We have a little sticker here, a little sticky note on our fridge, and it says, "You are exactly where you're supposed to be." And every time I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, right. I'm right here. And it helps me to remember that I am right where I'm supposed to be. And the reason that I say that is because wherever you are, there you are. We might be going through a challenging time. We might be wishing we were somewhere else because of the intensity of whatever it is that we're experiencing. Maybe we're having a rough day. Maybe someone yelled at us. Maybe we had a really hard time. We experienced loss in our life, and we have the feeling of this isn't right. And we resist our experience. And then in the resistance of the experience, if it's what we are choosing to do, and if we choose, we start saying to ourselves, this isn't right, I shouldn't be here. We are creating, through choice, a resistance to what we're experiencing. And this is unnecessary. It doesn't help us. It doesn't help us to process the challenge. It doesn't help us to feel better. It doesn't help us to solve the material issue that we're in, to resist it. When I say resist, I'm speaking about the resistance to the experience of life, of being here right now. And some of the ways we resist are through wishing it didn't occur, or through some sort of avoidance, getting upset. And in reference to the first episode of the podcast, remembering that we have the opportunity to, in any of those moments, if we find ourselves in resistance, that we can relax into what is, relax into the experience. I've said before, I've referenced the devil's snare in Harry Potter, when Harry and Ron and Hermione fall through the Fluffy's door into the devil's snare, and Hermione says, "This is devil's snare, you," and then it's obviously much stronger than them, whatever the vine is made of, and they have to relax. And that's the only way to let them through. Hermione's like, you have to relax, and it lets her through. And then Harry relaxes and it lets him through. And then they say, Ron, you have to relax, and he won't relax. And then Hermione points her wand, and because the devil's snare hates sunlight, or it cannot, I think she says verbatim, she says it hates sunlight, shines her sunlight through her wand and is able to free Ron. And this analogy is it's so profound, and it's so, to me, so in alignment of the truth. And that this devil's snare is whatever it is that we're dealing with, and it is in the resistance, the kind of wrestling with it, the resistance to it, that it charges it and builds up and creates more of an issue than we had before, because we're just like kind of like wrestling and like being forceful against it and pushing against it. And the more we push against it, the more it pushes back on us. And remembering that we can relax, and we have the opportunity to love the experience in and of itself. So through the eyes of love, we can see the experience that we're experiencing in that moment and say, I love you too. I love this experience, whatever it is, as challenging as it may be. I'm remembering times in my life when I've been upset, when I've been sad, when I've been depressed, when I have had a hard time. And being able to sit down and allow the experience to occur. Allow this experience of, I'm uncomfortable, without trying to even get into what the mind is going to do about it, without getting into, I'm going to do this. Because when we really start, or what I've noticed, when I really start to look at this stuff, is that the mind has a very kind of tricky way of muscling its way into our experience. And Mark Manson, in his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, talks about the negative feedback loop from hell. In the sense of, I felt bad, and then I felt bad about feeling bad, and then I felt bad about feeling bad, and we just spiral downward. And what we notice, or what I've noticed, is that in a negative state, in a state of despair, sadness, anger, grief, we will recirculate. So whatever that vibration is that we're feeling, whatever that emotion, energy in motion, whatever that emotion that we're feeling, will vibrate and call in the thoughts that harmonize with it. And you can kind of watch this happen in real time. Oh, I'm feeling lousy, and I start thinking lousy thoughts and noticing lousy things and seeing things in my life that I didn't see otherwise, but are in kind of that frequency. We're in this channel. And sometimes this negativity can be very sticky. And just making it a practice to notice that the mind does that. Just notice that when you're feeling a certain way, you're not thinking, you can't really think outside of your vibrational state that well, at least when you're on your brain's on autopilot, which most of the time, let's just be real, our minds kind of just go. They're kind of just on autopilot. And random thought that occurs to me is, if you're watching this video, you'll notice my eyes going off center here, and then me looking at the camera here. And I just let you know, every time I'm looking off center like this, I'm looking at my own face in the thing, and I'm just noticing my own ego, my own narcissism, looking at my own reflection. So I'm working to look at the camera so I can look at you. And so well, I'll talk more about that in the future. But the thoughts harmonize with the vibrational state. And being able to notice that process, and notice that if I'm in a negative vibration, if I'm not feeling well, if I'm feeling sad, if I'm feeling lousy, if I'm feeling depressed, that it is not natural for me to think thoughts that are like, it's all good, woohoo, yay. And it becomes an active process to pivot into higher vibration thoughts. It takes a little bit more effort. However, to effortlessly pivot out of the downward spiral and switch the downward spiral to an upward spiral, we can exercise non-attachment. And this relates into the understanding that we are always in the right place at the right time. Because if we're not feeling well, we get the opportunity to practice non-attachment to the experience of now, if it's uncomfortable. So, and sometimes these experiences are very uncomfortable, extremely, like excruciatingly uncomfortable. Physical pain in the body, fear of who knows what, fear of the unknown, fear of death. These things can be very scary to relax into, because ultimately we are relaxing into a degree of the unknown. And that takes faith. And faith is the confidence that I am 100% responsible for my quality of experience. I'll say that again. Faith is the confidence that I am 100% responsible for the quality of my experience. And that definition may be different than what you've thought of faith as being before. So allow me to explain. And I will reference the book, The Presence Process. Not remembering the name of the author in this moment, but that's where this definition came from. And when I first heard it, it shook me to my core. It was just complete mind-blown epiphany. Faith we normally think of as, I have faith that something will happen in the future. Faith is ascribed to the future. I have faith that something will happen. I will receive some money. I have faith that I will get the relationship that I need. But if we remove the content of the faith, of the receiving or something happening, then we ultimately are left with, I have faith in life, or I have faith in God. I have faith in the experience. And then when we understand that the experience is what is, basically, then we just have faith. And ultimately, if I had to describe faith as just a simple feeling, it's that it's okay, right? Faith is, it's gonna be okay. That's faith. And we can ascribe that to any area of our life. But it's the idea of, it's okay. That's faith. That's why a sigh can be really helpful, just to do that, to help calm our nervous system. So, without the content of faith and without the notion of time, of there being a future event to receive, we are simply in the state of, it's all okay. And we always have the choice to go there in the present, right now. It's okay. No matter what I'm experiencing, it's okay. Sometimes, as I've said before, as we've all experienced, there's loud experiences in life. There's perceived pain. And the reason that I say perceived is because pain isn't registered as pain until we register it as pain. I'm not really quite qualified to talk about this yet because I don't know it or understand it. And I'm not really qualified to talk about anything. So I'm just going to talk about it. In reference to some of David Hawkins's books that I've been reading, I think in his book, The Eye of the Eye, he talks about how he was able to have it may have been open heart surgery. It was an intense surgery that he had. I think that normally it would be recommended that he have anesthesia, but he was able to have the surgery without. And being able to sustain high levels of pain in the sense of, it hurts, but the trick is not minding that it hurts. I don't know what that's from exactly, but I can feel this sensation of pain. And we can experiment with this with just little pains, like, oh, I have a tummy ache. And it's really interesting with this. When I've had a stomach ache, I've experimented with the idea of just allowing it to be there and really being present for that experience of the stomach ache and just allowing it to be and not being like, oh, like once I noticed myself kind of like resisting it, I could notice the fact that my resistance to it was amplifying the pain itself. And when I actually just took a moment to look directly at it, this stomach ache or whatever, just really like look directly at it. And then have the courage to be present exactly with whatever that experience is. I felt it move. And I felt it actually kind of go away. And in a lot of ways, when we finally let go of the need to push it away, it kind of just naturally goes away on its own. Almost to say, when I finally get through my own attachment of resistance to the sensation of pain, the sensation of the perception of pain, then I reach a point where I become non-attached to whether it stays or goes. It's just there. I'm like, okay, this is part of, I love you too. and then there's no need for it to be there because it's not teaching anything. And so looping this all in to the fact that as an experience of the present moment of life, no matter what we're going through, we are never outside of the opportunity to grow in our capability to experience fully life. And in that sense, the entire universe, everything that happens, is acutely designed to reflect to you whatever it is that you need in order to fully experience it. And if that isn't spiritual evolution in and of itself, to just be able to experience what is happening currently, I don't know what is. There's a lot more that I can say too about the idea of spiritual evolution, of becoming better and growing and all of these different things. But essentially, we're never not where we are. We're always right here. We're always experiencing exactly what we're experiencing. The future is a projection, and the past is a memory. And we call both of them to us in the present. And we can go into manifestation and also learning from our mistakes. And there's all of these different things that have value as we move through life. But have you ever noticed that when you figure out some sort of issue and you have gotten through this level of issue or problem, that life throws you a harder problem that you can deal with. So you're never really thrown more than you can deal with. Well, maybe sometimes we are, and we have to kind of like unpack it later. So I'm thrown these experiences that are too loud for me to be able to grasp, kind of like perhaps big T traumas in our life. And then it takes a lot of time for us to process those. It takes a lot of time for us to kind of go back and like massage out those experiences. But within this notion of being in the right place at the right time, it's really good for us to to program that thought, to remember that. I highly recommend putting a sticky note on your fridge that says, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Or putting something on your phone. I think for me to really get that installed in the firmware of my brain, we had the sticker on the fridge. I did about a 10-week the 10-week presence process book, which was meditating 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening, and then each week kind of had a different theme to it. It was a lot of listening to great teachers and studying Taoism, Buddhism, meditation, Michael Singer, David Hawkins. These are some of my favorites that have been really helpful. What am I thinking of? Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now. Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. I would say The Power of Now and The Untethered Soul are pretty much the exact same concept. But for me personally, I enjoy, I find Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now to be, it's in a very different, it's written in a very different way than Michael Singer's The Surrender or The Untethered Soul. The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle can be a little kind of robotic in a way. And I find Michael Singer is very human. I really like how that book's written. I love both of those authors who have been absolutely pivotal for me in different times of my life. So it's all the same ideas. Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now talks about kind of what I'm speaking today about, the idea of the pain body, and the resistance to it is what kind of gives it life. So I do recommend those books for getting into this stuff, but just helping to program that thought, get into that thought. I am always exactly in the right place. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And as I say this, we can understand, like, we make decisions in our lives, and we can make a decision that will lead to a consequence with sequence. So a consequence, like a consequence, happens in sequence. It's something that happens as a result of another thing. And so within time, this is basically the first law of karma. It's the idea of what we think of as karma, is a cause and effect relationship in time. I do this thing and then this thing happens. And if I do within a lot of the Western models, we look at bad and good. I made a good decision, I made a bad decision. So I made a decision that maybe seemed good at the time, and then when I look back, I'm like, oh, actually, it seemed good at the time, but it was kind of a bad decision. And, or it led to a consequence. And then, when the consequence comes, so I made a bad decision. Let me think of an example. Because Lord knows I've made a lot of decisions in my life. Nothing's really coming to mind right now. But we make a quote unquote bad decision. And the reason it would be a bad decision is because it led to a unfavorable result. So I guess in loving truth, I can reference for myself. In the last couple years, I spent a lot of time, energy, and effort striving for a goal of massive financial gain. And within that process, the way that I was doing it was very much based on I must follow through. And as I tell this story within, I think, enough detail necessary, I just want to remind you to just be discerning in your own life. And remember that I don't know anything. I'm not your guru. I'm not your, I'm not an expert in anything. There's things that I've noticed. So for me in my life, I lived the last couple of years spending a lot on credit. And my own rationale was I can justify this because I'm working diligently towards the ability to kind of pay all of this off in the future. Like, as if to say, I'm going to be this is definitely tender for me to talk about this right now. Especially like aspects of my personal life and knowing that like everyone's going to be able to hear this and listen to this, but remembering that it's okay because our value comes from within. So the last couple of years of my life, it was like I know that my goal is I want to level up myself to a level of income that the money that I'm spending now is just overridden. Like it's just a drop in the water. And even so today, I still believe that I am fully capable of achieving any level of income that I want. And knowing and understanding the consistency of and the action required to get there. Now, because my current trajectory in that time, in the last 2 years or so, was to strive forward and in order to kind of like get over that hump of that entrepreneurial hump, basically, of I'm building my business and I know like sticking with it, all of the debts that I've incurred, the money that I've spent, I'll be able to pay off. And a lot of people have gone this route, trying to start businesses, get in a little over their head, and then don't quite make it all the way through. And I think is really important with this is striving, striving and making sure that we're not being unnecessarily pushed off course. However, sometimes our mode of operation in our life changes. What's important to us changes, and life can throw us curveballs. And so what happened to me is my original thought process, just go, push, get through this experience, get through to the other side, and you'll be happy on the other side. And what actually happened was I paused and I stopped, and I wasn't working a job at the time. This is me trying to get a new business off the ground. And and I incurred, and then I built enough passive income to cover the debts that I was, to cover all the minimum payments and everything of the cards that I had. And it was like the boat was just barely staying afloat somehow. It was like the exact amount that I had needed at that time at any given time was just getting paid. It was like perfect. And then things shifted, my life changed, and it all just like poof, fell apart. And I watched my own credit just get kind of go down, 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 down. And I was not able to sorry, I lost my train of thought. I wasn't able to yet rectify the situation. So looking at, okay, I could declare bankruptcy. I could just keep working harder at my business and try to, get it paid off. And what I decided to do was to get a job, and make sure I had a consistent paycheck, and then look at potential debt forgiveness programs. So I haven't declared yet bankruptcy. I've explored the option. There's definitely, a lot of people have to do it, and it's a good thing that we have the fortune in our culture, in this country, to be able to do something like that, to be able to say, hey, like I got in over my head. I have to declare bankruptcy. I have to, I kind of call uncle, basically. It's a good thing that we have that. And that, back in the day, they used to chop your head off or something. So we have this kind of like financial forgiveness built into our system. Do I support anyone going down that route and getting your head up against a wall and financially and not being able to? Absolutely not. What I want for you is to live a harmonious life. But what I can say, okay, so getting out of the tangent and understanding that, what I'm talking about is the idea of good and bad decisions, right? At the time, everything that I was doing was towards the positive goal of creating the wealth and the business and the security that I wanted to have, the life that I want, and doing a lot of pre-preparation now in my life as at the time single man, preparing, to try to get this stuff done now when I don't have a family and other people relying on me, to take more risks, and knowing that ended or has arrived to the position now of I've got like a considerable amount to deal with. And I'll just share with the amount with you right now. It's about $80,000. And what's really interesting is I've shared this experience, this number, with entrepreneurs who have laughed. Oh, 80K, man, that's nothing. I had like hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, And then some people looking at, there might be some of you who look at that situation and go, oh, like, and freak out and go, oh my God, like you are so like, like can't even conceive of that amount of money. Right. And so to me, I'm like, well, as the process goes on, okay, my credit score tanked. I had missed some payments, the creditors were calling me, and I looked into loan forgiveness options and whatnot, where they kind of basically, when you get to the end of the road, if you don't want to declare bankruptcy, they'll put you can have like financial aid programs that'll help you. Basically, once the payments are late, they can then go to the creditors and say, I'm getting a little tangential with this, but they can go to the creditors and renegotiate the debt for you and say, hey, they call it warehousing the debt. They put it off. It gets on their balance sheets and everything for all the creditors. It gets written off. It's probably already been written off and sold 3 times the debt that you have. So I'm not going to get all into finance. And I don't say this to excuse and say like, just go out there guns a-blazing and like be irresponsible with money. Absolutely not. But what that experience, so all in all, in everything that I just shared, right? And sharing with you this like pretty vulnerable part of myself and my experience in life. And is that normally we'd look at that situation and go, okay, that was a bad decision. And now you're suffering a bad consequence. However, what this entire situation has afforded me, and I can just tell you just some of the good things, is 1, I'm still alive and I'm okay. And I had to continuously go through these processes of, oh my God, everything's falling apart. What am I going to do? And then wake up the next day and I still ate some more food and I slept and blah, blah, blah. And I realized that all of the stress and everything that I was thinking about with that I was freaking myself out about, was totally made up. It was just, it wasn't real. Do I want to have a good credit score so I can go do good things in the world and like, leverage debt in the future? Sure. Yeah, that's great. And just in the topic of credit and understanding how to leverage credit and use credit effectively and responsibly, I think it's pretty good to, pay for the things that you buy. Like, you should pay for them yourself. And to me, one of the big reasons I haven't declared bankruptcy yet is I believe that we are accountable for every single thing that we do. I don't know if it was a Jesus quote or something out of the Bible specifically that was, every hair is accounted for. So when we talk about this idea of karma and consequence, every single little action is involved in this string of karma or this string of merit or this string of consequence. What I gained from that experience is the peace of mind knowing that no matter what my financial situation is, no matter what, it cannot touch my personal value. My personal value, my experience of life has now no attachment to my own, to my how much money I have or how much money I'm making. And it took going through that falling apart experience to really get that. And thank God I got to do it in a way where like I'm on my own. There's people out there in the world who it's like, you have a family, you have other people to rely on you. You got to make sure your kids are fed, all of these different things. But I think most of us can realize that like we've been in tight spots and somehow it all worked out. Think about this. If you are here right now, all of the hardest challenges in your life, you've gotten through. And the size of the problem is equal to the size of our ability to overcome it. And when we overcome it, it is equal to the size in which that we grow. for having overcome the challenge. So within the frame of good and bad, we can look at that decision to me as like, okay, Derek, you went into debt trying to start a business and trying to up level yourself. And now you have a bunch of debt and you're just, working a job trying to pay it off. We could look in that frame, in the traditional frame, bad decision, bad result, right? But when we look at the frame of what I said I gained from it, which was like the extrication from personal value being linked to the pocketbook, that's priceless. Like, because before then there was a lot of personal attachment to that. But now it's like, I still figure it out every day. And you know what's really interesting? There was a time during that time period where I was living in my car, and I remember distinctly having a night where I was sleeping on my broken sleeping pad with all of my belongings on like one side of my trunk. I literally had like everything I owned, like all my music stuff, and I had to like stack it to one side of the car, and then I'd lay down on my sleeping pad, and then I would go to sleep in the car. And I remember having a night where it was like raining and I could see the moonlight out, and I was so happy. It was like ecstatic joy to be like, wow, this is so simple and this is all that I need. Like, it was one of the happiest moments that I can remember in this last year, was just me like in my sleeping bag being like, I have everything that I need. Even more. Like, I have all this stuff and a car I can drive around. A lot of us are in the mode of striving towards some sort of goal, a relationship goal, a financial goal, an artistic goal, and really hinging our lives on this like purpose, on what it is that we're doing. And, that's what I'm supposed to be. That's what I'm getting to. Once I get there, then I will have proven myself and I'll be worthy. And, as I said to you in the last podcast, like, you are so worthy, like, just the way you are. And when we really remember that, this could be my last moment. Like, this day right now could be my last. And, I think it was Jesus who said something along the lines of, live each day, like just simply living one day at a time. Live for that day, and just focus on that day. Because whether we have a huge, big goal of something that we're trying to achieve and work towards, it's just a bunch of little days stacked up to get there. And so that shift that I talked about, that I shared on what happened in my life circumstance, it reminded me that every day, no matter what, every day is a gift. And am I still moving forward and working towards what it is that I want and achieve? Yes. But what I really want is to be happy and to be loving. What I really want is to fill to not be as attached to the content in my life and be more focused on how I relate with it. How much love and attention and good energy can I pour into what I'm doing, no matter what it is, and having that be the frame of how I move through my life. As I said before, I spent so much time trying to get somewhere and be really reachy that I put myself in a huge amount of debt. And then I look back and realize that I just kind of missed a bunch of stuff. So within that context of time, like, okay, you made a mistake. You know, it might not be a financial mistake. It might have been a mistake that really hurt somebody. Or somebody really hurt you. But, you know, within the law of karma, if you want to look at it after lifetime of lifetime of life, and we'll get into reincarnation in this podcast, but everything that happens in our life is meant for us. And we could look at it as, if we're resisting it, we're choosing to look at the problem as, you know, this is just bad. But when we start to look at it as, this is food for my spirit to work on, to overcome, no matter what it is, then sometimes the plate is really big, or seems really big. Sometimes it's a really big experience we got to go through. When we understand that, wow, this is an opportunity for me to grow, then that experience, no matter if it's a good or bad, is grace. So every single experience in our life, in all of the colors, in all of the vibrations of feeling, is like spiritual food for us to be able to expand our capacity to experience in a loving way. You are already there. You just got to remember. And in that sense, we are exactly where we're supposed to be. Exactly. And it's all okay. I'll see you on the next one.